Jordan Peterson denounced Kamala Harris and revealed the dirty lies she spread for her own political agenda. As Peterson said, this is a very dangerous situation, and Americans should know all these lies from politicians like Kamala Harris.
Jordan Peterson has spoken out once more regarding a subject for which he will undoubtedly come under attack in the future. The fact that he has finally come clean and revealed the truth about Kamala Harris is going viral on social media. Jordan Peterson exposed Kamala Harris's incompetence in the podcast, alongside Piers Morgan. He also criticized the way people label you as a racist if you criticize Kamala in any way. Furthermore, Piers Morgan supported his assertion by stating that Kamala's incompetence in relation to her position would be obvious to any neutral observer.
I was just watching a congressman from the U.S. today claiming that the critics of Biden after the last debate are ableist. Right? I mean, well, I don't even know what to think about that. It's like, I see. So now here's your theory. Your theory is that it doesn't matter whether the president of the United States is able, because all discrimination between being able and unable, a form of prejudice, and that even applies with regards to the president of the United States. And so that means that all the people who are concerned that there might be something astray with him cognitively that we're being lied to about at a level that's almost inconceivable are now equivalent to like KKK racists from the 1940s. That's your argument.
And by the way, in relation to the same critique of his vice president, should you dare to criticize Kamala Harris, you are de facto a racist. That the only reason,
Gavin Newsom said that the other day.
That the only reason that you would feel the need to criticize this black woman who's vice president is not that she's been completely incompetent in her job. Any impartial observer would conclude, but it has to be because of her skin color.
Additionally, Peterson disclosed how Kamala was selected for the job because of her gender and color. Biden had previously stated that he would bring a black woman, but Peterson's statement has since been misinterpreted, leading to accusations that he is a racist. Furthermore, Piers Morgan recalls receiving backlash on Instagram for not adhering to a trend, despite having discussed the matter prior to the trend's emergence. Peterson went on to say that their critique is far worse than this.
That's why she was put in the damn position to begin with.
Joe Biden said publicly, I want a black woman, right? And then he gets a black woman who is massively underperformed, which hasn't helped him at all. But no one's allowed to criticize her, because if you do, you'll be called a racist. And I find that one of the laziest tropes out there in modern society. It's a way of, I think we've discussed it before, but it's a way of stifling honest debate. It's a way of censoring legitimate criticism.
It's a way of asserting moral superiority that's unearned. That's a lovely
and actually, none of them really mean it. I mean, it is the genuine epitome of virtue signaling. What they're really, I mean, I remember for example, I remember when the George Floyd murder happened, and it was a horrific incident, of course. But I remember that soon after that, there was everybody had to signal their virtue about this by doing a black square. Now, I'd spent the entire morning on Good Morning Britain hosting debates about the George Floyd killing and showing enormous empathy and support for Black Lives Matter and what had happened. This is very early stages, before a lot of stuff came out about the organization Black Lives Matter, which put a rather different gloss on them. But the principle that, this had been a killing, that this man should never have been killed, that it was possibly racially motivated, all that kind of stuff. I was debating this with an absolutely open mind and being very empathetic to all these arguments. But I didn't do my black square on Instagram. And my son's got in touch with me and said, Dad, you got to do your black square. I went, why? We're getting criticized because you haven't done it. And I actually had posted a picture of a bottle of rosé wine because I was having one in my local square. And I hadn't given any thought to the rule that I had to signal my virtue about. And I then got absolutely annihilated by people saying, how dare you do this? Where is your black square? And I remember thinking, but all of you are going to go right back tomorrow morning to posting inane, self-aggrandizing photographs of yourselves on beaches or in nightclubs or in Ferraris or whatever. None of this means anything to you. Whereas tomorrow morning, I'll be back on air doing another 3 hours of debate about this to try and get the society in the world in relation to this issue back to a place of better racial justice. Now, which one is going to have a better effect? on influencing people's minds.
There you go, be an ableist again.
Right, and that's the point, is that I found it such a trite and kind of pointless example of this cult of virtue signaling.
It's worse than that. So I just finished a book, which is going to be published in November, and a sequence of biblical stories trying to explain what they meant psychologically. And I spent some time on the book of Exodus for obvious reasons. And there's a commandment in there that people misapprehend. So I think it's the third commandment. Don't use God's name. Thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain. Swear or curse. And it sort of means that. Is associated with that casual use of the sacred, let's say. But that isn't what it means. It means divine virtue when you're working for your own purpose.
Jordan Peterson didn't stop there. In a tweet and statement, he disclosed additional startling information about Kamala Harris's political campaign, stating, "It is the most deceptive campaign I have ever seen in my life." Peterson went on to say that her campaign was all about image and that it was deceitful in that she avoided discussing any policies in favor of talking about topics that she was sure would draw attention. In addition, he labels her narcissistic and manipulative.
I want to ask you about the vice president, and I'll ask my colleagues to put up a tweet of yours, which I think summarizes a position. Now, again, the language of this is negative. I think that's a fair use of the word, clear. But this is your point of view about her. It's going to be a little hard to read. Go ahead and take that full, Dr. Peterson and me, down so everybody can see it.
Yeah,
provoke,
right.
provoke. Turn the tables on achieving a response. Narcissist, manipulation, par excellence. She's a master of chaos and deception. What do you mean when you say that she's involved in narcissistic manipulation?
It isn't just her, it's her advisor class. There's a psychologist, J.D. Haltigan, he's one of the few psychologists that's willing to analyze the current pathology of the political situation. So there is a cluster of personality disorders known as cluster B, and that includes histrionic, narcissistic, borderline, and antisocial. The antisocial personality types are generally male. The other three categories are generally female. The typical behavior of someone who manifests continually to provoke an argument on one grounds, let's say, for a self-serving reason, and to push that and push that and push that continually until they evoke a response of some sort from their target, and to be unbelievably persistent and manipulative about that. And then when the person to act aggrieved and victimized, to pretend that the discussion had absolutely nothing to do with that, of like weirdness, let's say, which is obvious Kamala, the Harris-Walz campaign is doing, and then to pretend that the whole discussion was about something else all along, and the people that were targeted are just being strange to even imagine that that might have been the case. It isn't the conservatives or the classic liberals who have made race and diversity and equity and inclusivity the central topic of discussion for the last 10 years. It is 100% liberal progressive types and all of their media acolytes, all educated in the institutions of higher education, who have made these diversity issues center stage. And for the Harris campaign to fail to put forward any policies whatsoever, and then to accuse the conservatives and classic liberals of concentrating on the wrong issues. It's always been the economy and healthcare and education all along. Signs of exactly the kind of pathology that I'm describing. It is the most deceptive political campaign I've ever seen in my life. She is running 100% on image. It's so interesting to see, because part of the reason that Harris had political success to begin with, career success, is because she fit the DEI stereotype so perfectly. She's a minority female, so she hits the intersectional checklist categories. She is running, as far as I can tell, 100% on that. It's a 100% image campaign. That's a remarkable thing to see, and it's quite terrifying also. You know, what's Harris? Well, she isn't an angry old white man. That's typical histrionic narcissistic argumentation and behavior, that's for sure. And I see every sign of that in the campaign, and people have no idea how dangerous that is. No idea at all. So it's a remarkable thing to see.
In reaction to one of Kamala's posts, he also tweeted saying, Kamala invented a new racial category to divide Americans against one another.
Greetings, everyone. Today, I am proud to launch AA and NHPI voters for Biden-Harris. Like so many, we were raised, all of us, to understand the value of hard work, the importance of community, and the duty. So we need to make sure around our country, just as we need to make sure that those voices are represented in all levels of government. Because when policies reflect our experiences, our collective experiences, our perspectives, I am certain of one thing: our country is stronger. Please text AA and HPI to 30330 to join our campaign today.
When asked what positive quality Kamala Harris had, Peterson responded by criticizing Kamala more and more. He further stated that although Kamala had not discussed any policies during her campaign, the one time she had spoken about one, it was regarding pricing restrictions, which Peterson found to be completely nonsensical because it would open the door for illegal marketplaces, among other things. Peterson also brought attention to the Time magazine cover featuring Kamala. He criticized that she did not deserve to be on there when she did not even give them any interview.
Years. All right. So that's your critique, and you say she's doing well, and I know because you said it and because it's true. In part, she's doing well because the press is all for her. Is she saying anything that you think is from your point of view, is positive?
Well, there's so much about what's transpired in the U.S. in the last month that's, I think in some ways it's beside the point. Well, first of all, let's just walk through this for a moment or two. She's never been placed in front of the populace in any credible manner. She didn't run through the primary process. There's no indication whatsoever, plenty of evidence that she wouldn't have been. So she replaced Biden, despite the fact that apparently we're all and accept without question that he's still competent to be president. And she's running, as I pointed out already, purely on, I'm not going to overlook all of that and say, well, now and then she might say something that bears repeating or deeper analysis. It's like, it's so preposterous that she actually did utter a few words on policy and make a very small profit margin. Like, it's remarkably small. It's amazing they can stay in business at all. And the idea that the major policy initiative that she would put forward has to do with price controls, well, first of all, indicative of her far left leanings. If she institutes price controls, all that will do is produce black market and shortages. Give her any credence. The other thing I would say about Harris is that when she does speak, remarkable capacity she has, and it's very easily parodied. And so, you can also tell. Well, you can also tell. It's so interesting watching this. As I said, she's running a campaign that's fundamentally predicated on image, and that's also a good marker for this kind of manipulativeness that I was talking about. They're keeping her away from anything that would constitute spontaneous utterance or press conferences. Time magazine did a famous cover of her, which is kind of a socialist, realist, propagandistic, and the Time put it on their cover, which I think in some ways was inexcusable to begin with, given that it's like, what the hell's going on? Why did she deserve that homage?
Peterson has responded to tweets before, this being one of them, in reaction to Joe Biden's tweet stating that Kamala will be one hell of a president. He even tweeted in a sarcastic manner, saying, "He's never said truer words."
Tweet of Kyle Becker that said, if you've been paying attention, you'd have noticed the main's turning against Harris. Kamala better watch her six. That tweet had titles from CNN, The Hill, The Washington Post, and other mainstream media, where they were criticizing absurd economic plans for Kamala Harris. And this criticism of Harris from these media outlets is very strange. And Peterson, perhaps there is a limit to how much diluted leftist economic idiocy even the legacy media can tolerate. Also, BBC posted words of Biden where he said that Kamala Harris will be one hell of a president. And in response to this situation, Jordan Peterson sarcastically responded that Biden never said truer words.
The reason Peterson selected Trump over Biden and Harris was also disclosed. He emphasized how Trump's presidency was free of warfare and how peace in the Middle East resulted from his negotiating a contract with Saudi Arabia. Kamala received criticism from Peterson for refusing to sign the contract during her time in Saudi Arabia because she did not want to accept Trump's choice.
In 2023, during an interview with GB News, Jordan Peterson explained why he decided to support Trump and how much Biden-Harris lied about their accomplishments. Although Jordan admitted Trump wasn't his top choice for president, at that time Trump was leading in the polls for the Republican nomination, but it was unclear if he was more popular than the current president. Biden-Harris administration had faced criticism for their various mistakes, But Peterson was more concerned about how Biden and Harris handled relations with Saudi Arabia. This agreement, signed during Trump's presidency, aimed to improve relations in the Middle East. Peterson thought Kamala Harris had avoided pursuing new ties with Saudi Arabia. Jordan said, "I believe the Democrats didn't pursue Saudi Arabia at that because it would have been inconvenient to give Trump credit." Peterson mentioned that Trump had no wars during his administration, expressing that he would have welcomed another 4 years of peace and progress in the Middle East. Jordan added, "Trump had no war under his administration, and he brought in the Abraham Accords. I would be pretty happy with another 4 years of no war and an extension of the Abraham Accord." And earlier in 2024, Peterson criticized President Biden-Harris administration, stating that they should be prepared to be defeated by Donald Trump in the 2024 election. The 61-year-old took to X to express his frustrations with U.S. politics, directing his criticism at the current president. Peterson tweeted, "You, the Democrats, did everything you could to keep Donald Trump in the race because you thought you could defeat him. Well, he's back with a vengeance, and you won't. And it's on you, Joe Biden, and your blind equity minions. Welcome to 2024. Strap in and pray." Peterson revealed new lies about Kamala Harris and made fun of her. Peterson shared that he doesn't understand why America immensely dislikes the former president. He believes the hate Trump rampage is classist because the left-wing faction can't stand a salesman and a hustler running for the presidency. The degree of animosity that people have for Trump is actually somewhat of a mystery to me. I can't quite crack it. There's a class thing there, I would say. Elitist people are annoyed that someone like Trump, or someone who they think Trump is, has dared to enter the upper echelons of the establishment. The difference is the former president bullies for useful reasons that serve his nation's greater good. Earlier in 2024, Peterson had also said that Donald Trump is the most falsely pressured and vilified political figure in American history. The commentator was implying that Trump has massive support in America, which makes him a hero for some and a villain for others. And today in 2024, Jordan Peterson criticized Kamala Harris's stance on equity versus equality, arguing that she misunderstands the fundamental definitions of these concepts. Harris said, "It has to be about a goal where everybody should end up in the same place." Peterson pointed out that Harris seems to conflate the two, failing to recognize that equity, which aims for equal outcomes for all people, is a fundamentally flawed and dangerous idea.